Chinaza Samuel, Arise News.
Now, to try to get a good grasp of what formed the basis for putting this council together, its goals and aspirations, and to what extent the projected path to Labour Party's campaigns align with those of its presidential candidate and former Governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi, we're now being joined by Ndi Kato, a spokesperson for the Obi-Datti Presidential Campaign Council. Good to have you on Newsday. Now,
thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, of course. Now, of course, Ndi, you're already aware of what's happening. We understand that to an extent that Labour Party has distanced itself from the names on that list on the Presidential Campaign Council. I'd just like to ask you details about how this election was done based on the outcome that we've seen so far.
So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do in Labour Party and with the Peter Obi Campaign Council is at the bottom or at the core of campaigning is volunteerism. And what we try to do is to reflect the core of that volunteerism. We had so many people around the nation putting in their efforts. As you can see, the campaign council list is very extensive, possibly the biggest campaign council list, because it comes from all spheres of lives. Other campaign council lists, if you go back to elections prior to this, you will see that it's the same people repeating. But this is an election in which a party and a candidate is trying to do things a different way. The candidate is being carried by the people. And this campaign council list has to reflect that. We are carrying people from all over, young and old, people who have their jobs, all of that. People are actually volunteering, and this is what it is reflecting. So at the core of it, we must remember that this is a campaign council list. It's not a list that reflects how you pay people or how you get people back for the favors they have done for you or they have been at this, No, it's people who want to function, people who want to do something, people who want to make sure that this candidate wins. And at the core of it is that these particular people want a better life for Nigerians, want a better Nigeria, not necessarily that they want to get anything out of this. So this is what this means. And I think that the noise around this, the conversation around this is focused in a certain way, or is pointed in a certain way, because people are used to political cronyism. People are used to, within the system, whatever you get means that at the end of this, you're going to benefit from it. If you're part of the campaign council, or if you have this role in the campaign council, it means that at the end of the campaigns, if your candidate wins, you're expecting something personal. At the core of this campaign council, I will say again, is volunteerism. Volunteerism for what? To make sure that this candidate that Nigerians believe in, that these people believe in, gets into the seat of the presidency. And when that person gets in there, what do they want? A better Nigeria. Thank you.
Now, Comrade Abayomi, excuse me for the pronunciation, seems to disagree with this and seems to disagree with the vision and the position and the stances that have been taken concerning the PCC list. What's the way forward? Because it looks like there's a bigger rift developing within the party.
So the chairman of the party, Comrade Abure, has made this very clear. The party is going to is going to swear in the campaign committee, and that is what matters. At the end of the day, people will have disagreements, but I want to bring us back a bit to what I've said. At the end of the day, this is a new way of campaigning that Nigerians are not used to, and you will still have politicians who are still signed into the old way of campaigning, who think, because this is happening. Look, Doyin Okupe, who is the DG, has been on this campaign from the beginning. Before people began to believe in this campaign, Doyin Okupe has been on this campaign. He has sacrificed so much for this campaign. But this is not even to reward him for the sacrifice. It's to say that we know that this man is capable. He has put together a very good team. He has done so much hard work. Why then should we cut this hard work in half and say, you cannot continue simply because you do not come from a certain part of the country? Campaigns are not to reward. Campaigns are for people who can best function to get the job done. Perhaps if you get to where we are saying, we want to do federal character because governments must reflect this, and painfully so because of the composition of Nigeria, you can now say, maybe we do not want Doyin Okupe to be the vice president. Maybe we don't want him to be this high position or that high position because, this government official must come from here or come from that. But campaigns is we need to get this man into the seat of government. We need to get Peter Obi where we need him to be to function, and that is the seat of the president. That is for Peter Obi to be president. And what a campaign should do is to look at who is best to get this job done. And that is the function, that is the main goal of this presidential campaign list, to ensure that those who can do the job, those who have been putting in their efforts, and those who have shown capacity and capability can continue to do the job going forward.
I hear you on that, Ndi, but at the same time, is the juice worth the squeeze is the question. If this campaign council will end up causing a lot of division within the Labour Party, is it still open to, revision, or is this cast in stone and nothing can be done?
I would like to say what we're calling a lot of division would be the publicity secretary disagreeing with the campaign, with the composition of the campaign council, and the chairman of the party has said otherwise. Now, people can disagree. It's within the rights of people to disagree, to say, look, I have seen this and I may not like this aspect or that aspect. And at the end of the day, we find a solution to that. But right now, this is not what we'll call a rift or the party is tearing apart or anything. There can be disagreement. It's a list of 1,000 plus people. People are going to talk about their interests. People are going to talk about their opinions on these things. But at the end of the day, the core of this is we are doing volunteerism. A lot of people are volunteering their time and energy to make sure that Peter Obi is elected. And we must go in that line. So even the party trying to reconcile itself is going to go in that line, saying that we are looking more at how can we get the job done and less of how can we reward people for where they come from, or how can we try to reflect where people come from or where they do not come from. We are trying to get the job done. The conversation around settling this rift, in quotes, which I do not consider a rift, is that we're trying to look at how we're going to get the job done, and everybody must come to the table and talk about it, arrive at a solution. The solution generally is we need to get a job done, and this is the best person to get the job done.
I hear you on that. So are you saying that it's subject to revision, or is this cast in stone? I know you need to get the job done, but from an observer's point of view, it does look like there's a bit of a rift. Of course, you're within the party. You're expected to speak well of the party. But from an observer's point of view, things don't really look so great. So are you open to revision, or is this it regarding the campaign council?
What we will say, of course, this is a democracy, and the Labour Party, more than any party, is democratic. So what I'm going to say clearly is, of course, conversations are going to hold going forward. But you mentioned something very clear, and that is about Doyin Okupe. And I do not think that we're going to replace Doyin Okupe because he has shown capacity. But if it is that we need to have a proper conversation, and proper conversations have held prior to this, but to keep having conversations going forward so that everybody will be brought on board, that is the proper thing to do. Of course, we're not going to throw away the National Publicity Secretary of a party. We're going to have conversations, and conversations are key going forward. That is how political parties function. We do not expect that everybody in the political party or everybody who supports Peter Obi will look at this list and say, oh, you know what, everything is perfect with this list. I like everything that is happening with this list. No, people are going to disagree. But that disagreement is not necessarily a rift. It's not. It's not necessarily a rift. It is just that disagreement. And disagreements will be settled. That's what political parties do. People do not necessarily agree on everything. But you cannot see people coming out to say, you know what, I'm going to cost the Labour Party this election because I disagree on this. It is just that, a disagreement, and yes, conversations will be held.
And let's look a little bit at what those conversations look like and why these particular disagreements are getting the type of momentum and publicity they are. Because if we look at the APC and the PDP, the foundation of a lot of the disputes currently happening within those organizations are based on national representation and the origin, a balance of representation with regards to, states of origins of certain key positions. And that is, of course, the argument of Comrade Abayomi. So, what does the Labour Party intend to do with regards to, I understand the federal character as you get into government, but before going into government, of course, the electorate wants to get a good idea of what the vision is, what the blueprint and the DNA of the party is. What is the party doing to address concerns about making sure that it's truly a pan-Nigerian movement?
Of course, it's a pan-Nigerian movement. I'm from Kaduna State. I'm from the Northwest. If you look at even the composition of the spokespersons, we're from all over the country. People from all over the country have formed this list. And I remember clearly when we were forming this list, how we had to go back and sit down and look at everybody who had put in their effort to contribute to this campaign. Of course, you cannot take everybody, but that is why the list is so extensive. This list covers so much and then some. We have people who run their private businesses who have not even had business with politics before. for. But I've said, you know what, in this election, I'm going to put myself forward. We had people who are even in the military and are saying that, you know what, I'm going to put myself forward. These are all people that have been considered. Of course, you cannot satisfy everyone. That is the situation, and that is the reality with lists like this. When a list comes out, it cannot satisfy everyone. But I will say again that with respect to Labour, it is not a rift. It can be a disagreement about the list. Even on social media, I've read comments. Not everybody is happy with every aspect of the list. They're happy with some aspect. They may disagree with some aspect. But at the core of it, I would say again, it's a disagreement. It's not a rift. Other people have their party people swearing that they are going to cost them the elections. You know what? I'm not going to campaign. I'm not going to do this. This is not going to happen. You will lose at the end of the day. But that is not where Labour is headed. That is not where Labour is headed. Conversations will be held and these disagreements will be addressed. That which can be changed will be changed. But I do not see, you know, taking out of this, changing any core person from their position. Again, we're looking at capacity, and I will want to reiterate this over and over again. We're looking at capacity. It doesn't matter who announced the list. It does not matter. What we're looking at is this is the capacity. This is the person that has been delivering. This is the person that can deliver the most, and that's what we're going forward with. Why we are having these kinds of conversations at the end of the day is because of how people look at campaign committees, campaign councils, campaign lists as an avenue in which, oh, if I show this working, if I'm here, it means that when they win, we're going to get something. And that is what I'm trying to point out today, that at the core of the Obi campaign is volunteerism. There's no assurance. We've not had any conversation that, oh, when this person enters government, I'm going to get something. I have absolutely no interest. What I would want to is, you know what, if you want to say I can do this in this position, fine. If not, I can continue with my job. People are gainfully employed. What they're trying to do is to volunteer their time and energy for something that they believe in. And at the end of the day, subjecting something that is quite different, that is completely different, I would say, from other political parties and how they function, to the nuances, to you know, the boxes in which these other political parties function is quite unfair. This is a very, very different situation. This is volunteerism at its core. People are not benefiting personally from this. They're sacrificing their time, and the list reflects people who put themselves forward to sacrifice their time and energy to get these things done, and who are already doing these things. So it's just that.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, because we do have other matters to touch on. And of course, you've mentioned volunteerism. We've noted that. Thank you so much. Let's talk about the delay when it comes to the manifesto for the Labour Party. As you know, the presidential candidate has drawn some criticism regarding the delay. Though, of course, he's justified it, saying he's waiting for the positions of the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress before releasing the manifesto. I'd like to ask you the status of that and how much longer we'll have to wait for this.
So with respect to that, one of the things I always talk about with the candidate, His Excellency Peter Obi, is that this man is a walking manifesto. You saw his appearance in Harvard. Everywhere he goes to, he talks about these things. And again, we're subjecting him to people who do things a different way. The elections, Nigerian campaigns have come a very long way. I would even credit our candidate with bringing this election to the issues, to people actually talking about the issues. We're doing less of pageantry and more about conversations. This is because of the way Peter Obi started this campaigning on. And I'm super proud of that. Now, with respect to that, they're still working on it. Is going to come out. But when we are talking about these things with respect to the manifesto, we can't be talking about the manifesto as if Peter Obi has not come out clearly time and again to say the things that he's going to do with, when he gets into office. We can refer back to his appearance in Harvard. In his appearance in Harvard, Peter Obi listed, and he still brought it back to social media. And it's every day these conversations are happening. So even if you go back, or even if he wins this election and you go back and look, even if you don't have a document, and I'm not saying that we will not have a document, we'll definitely have a document. It is in the works. Day and night at the campaign office, people are working on this. Now, if we don't have a document at this moment, you cannot look at Peter Obi and say, I do not know what this man is about. He has laid it bare time and over again about what he's going to do when he gets into office. He's talked about what he'll do with the economy, with security, all of that. He has mentioned these things. So I think that going forward, yes, we need to have a little more patience. This is going to come out. This is not a candidate that comes out and tells you to shut up or you know what, I don't care about your concerns. This is not something that you can just jump to. It's not a competition about who brings out a manifesto first. It is about who has the best manifesto, which manifesto reflects the needs of Nigerians, which manifesto wants to solve the problems of Nigerians, which manifesto reflects empathy and wants to do something. That is what we are aiming for. So we're looking at the quality of the manifesto. We're not necessarily trying to be the first or second to come out with a manifesto. We want to have a complete manifesto, a reflective manifesto, and that which works for Nigerians. And that is what matters. That before this campaign runs out, a manifesto will come out. Secondly, it is that that even while the manifesto is not out, the candidate stays on the issues. The candidate is constantly talking about the issues. The candidate has made sure that this campaign is an issue-focused campaign, and that should matter.
So are you going to give us a date?
Well, you know, while we wait for the date, I'm glad you mentioned social media and the role that it's played, because one of the statements that has been made upon the announcement of the Presidential Campaign Council is that Peter Obi already has 15 million voters in the bag. And to break that up, it's 60% of Nigeria's 38 million social media users have registered to vote, and that figure, 50% of that figure, excuse me, are obedience. And of course, we all know that this has been a huge topic of conversation since this movement started, is the debate that, are these people really voters? Are these people really going to translate to support on the ground? And I'm just curious, because as we see now with the PCC, we've seen the development of structures. The Peter Obi movement has always been criticized and critiqued. Where are the structures? Where are the people? So I'm quite keen to know what the way forward is with regards to these 15 million voters. How is this conversion being made from social media engagement to voters on the ground?
So it's quite funny that we would see people who understand the issues are constantly having conversations about elections, constantly having conversations about registering to vote, picking up their PVCs with keen interest on this in this election, in an election where majority of the voters, I don't have the figure off the top of my head right now, but I'll try to get it, but majority of the voters in this election are actually young people and women. So we cannot look at the young people that INEX register reflects and says, look, majority of voters in this election are young people and are women, and we'll say, oh, this might not be the people. Because the people on social media are these young people. The people off social media are these young people. It's quite condescending. Every time we see a crowd of people and it looks like, oh, you know what, these people are just rushing to a certain place, or it looks like, oh, they're paid or something like, oh, those are the real voters. We see people talking passionately about the election, saying, look, I'm willing to put my money into this election. We're like, oh, you're not the real voter. Who is to say who is the real voter? Young people have decided, and whether or not we like it, this is an election that is going to be decided by a certain demographic, and that demographic is young people. Young people are leading the conversations in this election. They are leading conversations, and the people on social media, where we tend to say that social media is not real life, but look again, these are actual people. This is how this campaign started, with a lot of young people speaking out, being very strong, and we wrote them up. We first said 4 people in the room. Even I had my doubts when the election started. I was like, where are we going with this? But as we keep, and the momentum kept building, more and more people, and these are actual people, these are living, breathing people, these are people who are going to vote. There are some of these people who this is their first time making their votes, and they have made themselves known that, look, I've registered, I'm going to pick up my voter's card, I have picked up my voter's card, I'm going to vote. Now, this is even social media, but we'd like to act like, and this is not an accusation on you, I'm just saying we in general, we like to act like the conversations on social media do not trickle down to the normal society. If you have a conversation on social media today, try go to a rural area. After a while, it has trickled down to that level. The conversations on social media tend to influence the conversation happening on mainstream media. People watch mainstream media. People listen to mainstream media. This goes down to the grassroots area, and people hear, they see, they understand. If you go to my village, people are talking about Peter Obi in Kafanchan. These are places that the candidate has not even been to before yet on an official level. People are talking. So it's not that to say, oh, you're just on social media sitting down. No, young people have shown, and I do hope that we do not continue to put them down, because young people have shown time with that number. I remember with the NSAS protest, when it started, oh, people are just going to talk on social media, you will not take to the streets. They took to the streets. It's the same thing that is happening now. Young people are showing interest. They're coming out. They're organizing. First, we said, oh, you people will just talk on media, you will not come out. They have organized rallies. You know how much typical politicians have to pay for these rallies? The Peter Obi movement have actually made elections much more expensive for typical politicians, because these are organic crowds that you just can't get anyhow. Young people are organizing these crowds for free. They're bringing themselves out for free. Other people have to pay. It's not that easy. And now we're looking at the next step, the step that we said that they would not be able to do in the first place. They have shown you through their rallies that, look, no, if it is this step in political campaigns, we can do it more than you can ever imagine. We can organize ourselves and come out. And now they have done that. And then we're looking at those and saying, oh, you can do a rally, but can you necessarily vote? Those are people, those are grassroots people. Grassroots people are on social media too, and they are going to vote.
Great. And the final question, just before we let you go. Of course, you know that the presidential candidate and his vice made headlines for not being present at the unveiling of the campaign council members. Are you, of course, we know where Peter Obi was at the time, but are you concerned about how that was perceived, their absence, neither of them being present at that unveiling?
I don't at all. I think that was a ceremonial occasion, and there is even a bigger swearing in that is going to happen, and the candidate is going to be there. Now, the candidate has been more visible than any other candidate in this election. He's everywhere. I think we need to start a game of where's Peter Obi today. He's everywhere. He's doing things everywhere. He cannot share himself into several places at once. The good thing is that you know that he was not here, but you can point to another part of the country where he was being useful. You can point to somewhere else where the candidates were doing something to push this campaign forward, and that is what matters. It is not that, oh, in this particular gathering he was not there, oh, is something wrong? No, if he was not being useful, if he was out there doing something that is less, important, we would then have concerns. But it is Peter Obi just being Peter Obi like he usually is, being the functional man that he usually is. He had to be somewhere. He was representing this campaign and making sure that in more than one place people were talking about the campaign. So yesterday, people were talking about him presenting on one angle, and people were talking about the Presidential Campaign Council. That is the kind of campaign I would prefer to happen. We want our candidate everywhere, and if everywhere means that sometimes he cannot be in these places where we are announcing these things, that is fine. He is still speaking to the Nigerian people. Absolutely. And this is that election where more than anything else, we need people to trust the candidate. There's a trust deficit right now. There's a trust deficit right now. Yep. And we need a candidate that speaks to that and continues to speak to Nigerians, right. And that is more important.
Ndi Kato, we appreciate your passion. Thank you for speaking so well. Spokesperson for the Obi-Datti Presidential Campaign, answering our questions on the Labour Party's Presidential Campaign Council.